Hi, I'm Kaja.
And I'm Joanna.
And this is Starlit Citadel Reviews.
Marvel Dice Masters is a collectible dice game from designers Mike Elliott and Eric M. Lang and WizKids.
In Marvel Dice Masters, two players are masterminds controlling teams of superheroes in a giant battle. It's a two-player game that lasts about 30 minutes. There are two starter sets currently available, Avengers vs. X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men, and each of these can be supplemented with sealed, randomized boosters of 2 dice each.
Players begin Dice Masters by placing 3 basic action cards in the center of the table and assigning 1 color of action dice to each. Each player chooses 2 character cards with 2 matching dice each and places them in front of themselves.
Next, each player draws 8 sidekick dice and places them in a dice bag. Then the game begins. Each player starts their first game with 10 life, which must be tracked separately. Now, there are variant setup rules for draft play and tournament play included in the starter set, and each of these is going to vary the amount of life and the number of dice that you start with.
A player begins their turn by drawing 4 dice from their dice bag and placing them in their prep area. If they don't have enough dice in their bag, then they draw what's there, and then place their used pile of dice back in their bag and draw up to 4.
Next, they roll all of the dice in their prep area, including any that were left over from previous turns. They may re-roll any number of dice once. All of the rolled dice are placed in the reserve. If a rolled die shows the burst symbol, then the special effect on its corresponding card is triggered.
In the main step of their turn, players can purchase dice, activate global abilities, field characters, or use action dice. They can do any of these steps in whatever order they would like, as many times as they would like. When purchasing, players may buy from the basic action cards or from the character cards that are in their personal area.
To purchase a die, players spend the amount of energy shown in that card's upper right by moving dice with the appropriate number of energy symbols from their reserve to their used area. If the card shows a specific energy type, then at least one of the dice spent must show that energy type. You can spend part of a die's energy by turning it to a face with a lower value and leaving it in your reserve. However, this cannot be done with generic energy.
If a card has a global ability, this ability is available to both players over the course of the game. They can use the global ability by paying its energy cost. If both players choose to use it, then the player whose turn it is gets to go first.
The active player can use the action on any action die in their reserve by triggering its effect and moving it to their used pile. Any die with an ongoing effect can be left in the field, and it does not cost any energy to use an action.
To field a character, a player pays the amount of energy shown in the character die's upper left corner and moves the die into the field. Any effect that is triggered by a character being fielded is immediately resolved. Effects that target dice in the used area cannot be used to target dice that were used to pay to field the character.
In the attack step, the attacker may use each of their fielded dice to attack, and the defending player can use each of their fielded dice to block. Each blocker chooses only one attacker to block, however, multiple blockers can target the same attacker.
Both players may also use global abilities at this time, and the attacker may use action dice. Any effects that are triggered by blocking or being blocked are also triggered at this time.
Both attackers and defenders simultaneously deal damage equal to the value shown in their die's upper right corner. If an attacker is blocked, then their damage total is split between all the characters blocking them. Blockers deal damage to their attacker. Any character that takes damage greater than or equal to the defense value in their die's lower right is knocked out and sent to the prep area. An unblocked attacker deals damage directly to the opposing player, and this damage is deducted from their life total.
After combat, any attackers who deal unblocked damage are moved to the used pile along with any dice in the reserve. Then it's the next player's turn. The game continues in this way until one player's life reaches 0, and that player is the loser.
So, like its predecessor Quarriors, Marvel Dice Masters is fast to learn, fast to set up, and very fast to play. It's got a good kind of light amount of decision making because you're rolling dice and reacting to what they present to you, you're working very quickly and working very tactically. And the only real long-term strategizing that really comes up is deciding which characters you're going to play with at the beginning. So it's got the feel of a tight tactical filler with just a little bit of strategy tied on. It's also got a good amount of replayability. I mean, each player only chooses 2 characters to play with, and there's a very large number of characters that come with just the starter set. So it's going to take you a while to figure out all the possible combinations of characters, and you can play this game quite a lot before you start getting tired of it or feeling like you really have a grasp of all the different things that the characters can do. That being said, I don't think I'm quite the right audience for this game. I've never been a big fan of the collectible model, especially in cases where you're buying sealed boosters that are completely randomized, and where there's a variety of rarity and therefore value to the different cards. It's not something that's particularly appealed to me, and I often find it skews a little bit too heavily towards people who have more money to spend, rather than people who have more strategy or ability to play the game. And that's just not for me. I find it particularly bothersome with this game because it feels like, on the one hand, you've got the collectible aspect, on the other hand, you've got the fact that there's a real push to turn this into a tournament game with an organized play scene, and it feels like all of these heavy, intense, very gamery elements are being put on top of a game that's very light. Like I said, this feels like a filler to me, and so it feels really strange to be piling all of this weight and all of these extra elements onto a game that takes half an hour and a little bit of thinking to enjoy, and that odd fit really doesn't work for me.
So another aspect of this game that is a little bit disappointing to me is the component quality. This is a dice game. And I've seen a lot of really great dice in games, and there was an opportunity here to create a game that was full of really nice, colorful dice that gamers would love to collect, because gamers love dice. And unfortunately, in this game, they really didn't go there, and it's too bad, really. The component quality feels a bit inferior. The dice bags that come with the starting set are really disappointing. If I were the kind of person who was going to play this often, or tournament play, or you know, have a partner that I really wanted to play with, I would definitely get my own dice bag. The one that comes in the package is papery and thin. It's going to fall apart pretty quickly. So I would like there to have been a little bit more effort put into component quality in this game. That would make me a little bit happier. I'm also not really a collectible gamer. If you are a collectible gamer, or if you want to get into collectible gaming, this might be a nice gateway for you. It's quite cheap. The starting set is small and cheap and easy to learn and easy to play. So it's something you could get into to try out. The booster packs as well are quite inexpensive, so you could sort of start playing with this game, figure out if this is the kind of model that you like without investing a huge amount of money in this. Also, the theme is very family friendly and everybody knows it. The Avengers and the X-Men, you don't have to be a comic book fan these days to understand who those characters are and to be able to look at the pictures and play with these characters as if they are those characters that you see in the movies or in the comic books. So that's a really solid pro for this game, is it is accessible. If you've got a kid who wants to get into collectible gaming, you can play this game with them, and it's not going to be too much of a stretch. They're going to be able to get into it right away, and they might have a lot of fun with that world that everybody knows.
The next starter pack should be Alpha Flight, just saying.